Hey,
Hey, happy
Hello.
Friday.
happy Friday.
Yay!
We made
Yay.
it.
We
We did.
made it.
So this is our weekly check-in to remind you all that it is Friday. It's 4 p.m. Central Time, and we're gathering here at the Back Catalog Listening Party to listen to music and talk with friends, reconnect with everybody out there. So if you're out there tuned in,
Welcome.
welcome and make yourself known. Feel free to up. Alan, one of the first folks from Texas.
We're getting a real regular crew here, aren't we?
Yeah.
I love it. I
So,
love it.
Alan, I don't know if you have your mojito ready yet. He might have to come back to get his drink. Sometimes he forgets the drink. Anyway, so what are you all drinking out there today? Tony?
Well, I'm kind of predictable now. I bought a lot of Summit EPA when the quarantine started. So
Nice.
I am making my way through a delicious EPA here.
Excellent.
St. Paul.
Wonderful. And our guest, Eliza Blue, chiming in from South Dakota today. What are you drinking?
Well, so where I live in South Dakota, I'm on the western side, so we are in mountain time. So it's only 3 here.
Ah.
So I am drinking kombucha. 'Cause
Excellent.
don't want to start too early. I mean,
That's
it is
right.
Friday, but still.
Yeah. Well, I'm drinking, it was my birthday this week, Mother Banjo's Day. And
Happy birthday.
thank you. And my wonderful husband got me a bottle of Oban, one of my favorite
Ooh.
scotches.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
So I just cracked it open for today. So
You always have the
Cheers.
most interesting drinks. Yes, cheers. I see Chris is out there with his Uda pills. Cheers. And Alan's got a G&T. So thank you guys so much for being here today.
yeah.
It means a lot
Cheers.
that you're here.
And we're so excited to have you, Eliza, because you used to live in the Twin Cities for a bunch of years. In fact, you're a native Minnesotan, right?
Well, no, not exactly. I was born in a suburb of Detroit, and we lived there till I was 13. And then my family moved to a suburb of Minneapolis. So I went to high school in Minnesota. But then I was in the East Coast for a while, and then moved back. And that was where I was for, I don't know, maybe 5 years before I moved out here.
Yeah, and that's where you and I first crossed paths, playing gigs together at 331 and all kinds of places. So, and that's kind of where you recorded a bunch of your records was when you were here in Minneapolis, right?
Yeah, well, that was sort of the bulk of my music career took place during those years.
Wonderful.
That's awesome.
And so maybe for those people out there listening from outside of the Twin Cities and beyond who might not be as familiar with your music, do you want to talk a little bit about when you were recording here and the kind of music you were doing and where this album that we're going to listen to today kind of fits in?
Well, it's funny because the very, very beginning of music for me was actually that I played violin as a kid and then started singing. And so I kind of came from music with this classical background. And so no fiddler would ever describe me as a fiddler. And I feel like that sort of applies. I love folk music. I love bluegrass, old timey. Like that's the stuff I listen to, but it's not the music that I make. So a lot of times I get sort of described as that, but I think anybody, Tony included, would know right away that that is not what I'm doing. It's not.
I'm hearing contemporary
traditional
folk.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, yeah, I would call it folk music, but it's not traditional folk.
But I
music.
can hear the influences. I can tell you listen to that stuff because there's some of that weaving in and out as we'll all get to hear later.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think I first met you as when you were mainly like, yeah, sort of starting out doing side work, playing violin or fiddle or whatever you want to say. But then doing more of your singer-songwriter thing, playing guitar and banjo. So are there any stringed instruments you haven't endeavored to play yet?
Well, I can't play an upright bass. And for all the stringed instruments I play, people often assume that I just play piano, and I don't. I mean, that's not a stringed instrument, but that's a good one to start with. And I never did learn how to play it. So I keep thinking in my adulthood I'll go back and give it a try because it's a great instrument, but not yet.
Well, the record we're going to listen to today is The Road Home. And what year did this come out?
2010.
Okay. And you had made a few records before this. What kind of was important to you at the time when you made this record, and what might have been different from what you had been doing previous to this?
Well, this was a really interesting recording experience because eh, like most independent musicians, I didn't have an unlimited budget when it came to recording. And I would go into professional studios and just get so nervous. And, I had pretty bad stage fright on actual stages, and that translated to studios. So, I just never felt like any of the recordings I had made were really, I just wasn't happy with them because it was so hard for me to get over the nerves when I was in a studio and the clock was ticking. So I recorded this one. The basic tracks of just guitar and vocals were recorded live by a friend of mine, John Elliott, who,
Oh yeah,
I was
great
gonna say,
singer-songwriter.
yeah, another great singer-songwriter and just a good guy. And so he basically he was the one that was like, we can do this, we can make this happen. So he
Nice.
came to my house, like set some stuff up for me in my attic, and we recorded those basic tracks. And then I went through and almost every other instrument you hear is on there is me.
Really?
That I just overdubbed.
Wow.
It took me a couple months and just did it one track at a time. But it was a very liberating process because I finally felt like I wasn't up against my own fear, and also like not just fear of performing, but the fear of the money I was spending.
That ups the fear, when you see the clock ticking and,
You're like,
and all those
I gotta
dollar
get
signs.
it right.
Yeah.
So there were some guest artists on it, and then that was, I think, the first track we're going to listen to. It was also a really awesome experience because I think I guess I should say one thing first. Mikkel Beckman also does percussion on it, so he was I think one of the only other musicians I actually had that I spent some time with in the attic or whatever, But then for the track we're going to listen to, I had recorded "Ask Me to Dance" was the first track on the album, and I had a version of it I was pretty happy with. And I can't exactly remember what inspired me to do this, but I decided to do a reprise of it. And because I had recorded it in my home, I went around to a bunch of different really cool women singer-songwriters that I loved and admired, and recorded them singing in their homes,
Oh,
and
wow.
like doing. Some people did harmony, some people added just like texture, and I just love it. I was so pleased with how it came out. So yeah, overall it was a great experience. So it's probably not the highest fidelity recording in the world, obviously, but I still was really happy I did it that way, and really pleased with how it turned out.
All right. Well, let's give it a listen. I know all the folks out there are dying to hear it. I'm really impressed with that you did all those instruments. It sounds like a big band playing. So.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to listen to "Ask Me to Dance" reprise.
What is a body, a house for a soul? What is a road but a way to get home? It's too far to run, but it's farther to fall. So let's dance to the edge of the room. An unwelcome sorrow has long played the groom. Sweet amber kisses distilled from the gloom. I've opened the windows and unlocked the doors. So let's dance to the edge of the room. Ask me to dance, won't you ask me to dance? I've grown so weary of star-crossed romance. Ask me to dance and I will not refuse. We'll dance to the edge of the room. 10,000 sparrows have gathered at dawn. They bicker and sing as they spread across the You ask for so much and say nothing at all. Ask me to dance, won't you ask me to dance? I've grown so weary of star-crossed romance. Ask me to dance and I will not refuse, and we'll dance to the edge of the room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah, that feels really good.
Yeah, and I don't know what you're talking about with production value. I think it
That
sounds
awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah. And
Well,
a lot of
I was gonna just comment. So Ben Durant, he went in and definitely added a sheen after the fact that I think he's a little, because I did all the mixing too. I think he's a little horrified, like, what is this? So but he was very nice about it and definitely spruced it up for me.
Well, I agree
yeah.
with Alan here. I feel better already. Yes.
Yeah.
The week's problems are washing away. That was yeah,
beautiful.
it just had a feeling to it that, it was very calming. And I'd love to hear, kind of any backstory on that specific tune in terms of, lyrical content and story.
Well, the hilarious thing, so I think that this is a joke that both Ellen and I used to make at live shows a lot. I haven't seen you live in a while, Ellen, so I don't know if you still make this joke, but it's like really hard not to write these sort of sad songs. I don't know what the deal is, even now after all these years, and it's still, I sit down to write a song and they're just like, oh no. But so this song I actually thought was a happy song. When I wrote it, I was like, finally a cheerful song. And when I released it, people kept reviewing it, and this song specifically, like the melancholy dirge, and I was like, what? That's my happy song.
You know what though? There's joy in that melancholy.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it's like I play a lot of bluegrass music, and man, the lyrics, if you listen to them, man, they're pretty dark, but there's something about cathartic about it, and that's how I felt listening to that song.
Yeah,
There's joy
I agree. I think that song, and yeah, I agree. It's easy to have the intent to write a happy song, and it just kind of can take a nosedive. But that song, there's something about that melody, those soaring vocals, and I love what you did when you layered all those vocals. And I can't remember. I mean, I know I'm one of the voices on there, but I don't remember what. I don't have the list in front of me because there was many women who you recorded doing those vocals. I know Brianna Lane, Jennifer Markey. I don't remember who else.
Ashley Still.
Oh yeah.
Aaliyah Alton, she was lived in Minneapolis, but she was pretty young. She was actually my violin teacher, my violin teacher's daughter, but like
Jacqueline Alton's.
Yeah, so her niece. Yeah, her niece. And now she's like, a concert cellist and amazing musician, but that was when she was still in high school. So she was one of the vocalists. I think that's it. Gosh, I'll feel bad if I'm leaving somebody out, but I think that was it.
Yeah, anyway, I love how each voice kind of has its moment too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you just had them all singing in a chorus. I mean, I feel like it must have taken some time to do the mixing on that track to find because voices go in and out. It's not like they're all the same all the time. So
Well, and if I remember correctly, I think I just told everybody, just sing whatever you feel, and just like sing all the way through, and we don't be shy about trying something crazy. And so that was, again, yeah, it was really cool what people came up with. And so it was, when I did the mixing, I didn't keep everything, obviously, because that would have been too much. But there were so many cool layers that were possible then, because people had been creative, and it was just, yeah, it was really fun to mix, and I love how it came out.
yeah, really great stuff. Want to send a shout out to all the folks who've tuned in and are really digging the music. And I saw that Corazon Latino, Eve, one of the hosts on KFAI, is tuned in. So cheers. And also another KFAI reference, Dave said he remembers hearing this on Women Folk back in the day. So we'll have to bring it back. We played some Eliza Blue this week, but we'll bring back a track from this album, because it's been so much fun me hearing it again and remembering all these great tracks. And I've been listening to this all week, kind of in preparation for the show. And I have to say, it's really been a lovely companion as I've gone on long walks. So there's something about this as an entire album that's really neat. Did you write these songs all at the same time, or were they just sort of the batch you had when you were ready to record?
I'm trying to remember how long it was between albums. There was definitely, I mean, they weren't written all at the same time. I think it was over the span of a couple years. And there might have been one or two, now that I'm thinking about it, that didn't fit on the previous album that made it on this one. But usually what happens anyway, not that I've made so many albums, I'm not that prolific, but when you actually sit down to record, I usually end up having more than I use, because I am, I guess I'm old fashioned in that I enjoy having an album experience. And, when you're listening all the way through, sometimes you have things that it's a great song and it just doesn't, there's no place you can find to fit it. So there were older songs on there, but there were also songs that didn't make it on there. So I did try to give you an experience that would feel cohesive, I guess.
I felt that way. This is my first listen to it, and it felt like there was kind of some threads that were tying it together. And I'm just curious, kind of, if there were certain things going on in your life at that time when you were writing these songs that kind of tied that together.
Well, I'd been living in Minneapolis. I had moved to the coast of Maine, and I lived there for about 6 months. And then, which was really great. I loved Maine. It's beautiful, but it definitely became clear that wasn't home. So then I went back to Minneapolis. And when I got back to Minneapolis, before that, I had played music, and I had, played out and things like that. And I'd even released, a couple albums, but, when I came back after living in Maine, it was just like, I can't explain it, but I don't know. I guess I sort of just found my people, and it was like all of a sudden it just felt like I had come home, I guess. And so when I released that album, it was like a lot of the songs that I'd written in Maine, and then which was kind of a rough time, and then leading into which was a wonderful experience, which was sort of finding my musical home in Minneapolis. So that was kind of the trajectory of my life that I think I thought was somewhat mirrored by the album.
Yeah, and even the title, "The Road Home," kind of has that feeling of homecoming. Yeah, shout out to
Joel.
Joel. Yeah.
Thank you, Joel.
So Joel, listening from Sweden, we've had a lot of international listeners to the show, which has been so great. And so Joel, thank you for joining us. Probably the biggest Minnesota music fan outside of Minnesota is Joel Bremer, I would say.
I would agree with that.
Thanks. Yeah, we appreciate that.
And also for the rest of the show, I'm just going to refer, I'll just ask Joel if I'm saying the right thing, because he probably will remember better than me. I have a terrible memory.
Well, since the next song we have queued up is the title track, this is probably appropriate given your story about sort of having this be a homecoming of sorts.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, so when you think about the last song compared to this one, you'll see why the last one was my happy song.
It's all relative, right?
Yeah.
It's all relative.
All right, let's listen to "The Road Home" by Eliza Blue.
Be still, my soul, and I will sing you a lullaby. I will sing you good night. I'll sing you goodbye. Tonight's the night you didn't call. The time had got away. Trapped in a bottle, through glass you crawl out when the feeling fades. In barrooms you seek it, and sometimes you reach it, then it pulls away. And lost in the silence, and torn down and tied up, your whiskey slave. What are you waiting for? Get your feet on the road. Be still, my soul, be still, my soul, and I will sing you a lullaby. Oh, I will sing you. I'll sing you good night. I'll sing you goodbye. Now Jesus, he wants you. He calls out and haunts you till you cannot sleep. And angels surround you, but demons, they hound you till you cannot sleep. What are you waiting for? Get your feet on the road. Now how many drinks can you drink? How many thoughts can you think? How many ships can you sink? How many songs can you sing? Ooh, angels surround you, demons they hound you, you cannot sleep. Ooh, angels surround you, demons they hound you, and you cannot sleep. What are you waiting for? Get your feet on the road. And get your feet on the road. Get your feet on the road. The road home. The road home. The road home. The road home.
Man. Eliza Blue with The Road Home, the title track to her 2010 release. That's what we're exploring today on Back Catalog Listening Party. We have Eliza Blue joining us from South Dakota. And that song, I was really noticing the low end on that song a lot. But was it cello and was there bass? I don't know what's going on that.
So that was Aaliyah. That cello part was her. And see, it's all coming back to me now. So I went, her mom and her sister, who is also a really talented musician, lived in this apartment in Northeast, not that far from where I lived, Northeast Minneapolis. And so I went to their apartment to record her playing that cello part. And an interesting fact, you probably can't hear it in the recording, but when I was mixing it, her cello had a crack in the back that needed to be repaired. And so when she was playing her part, there was like this groaning sound that sounded like an old ship, like being in the bottom of an old ship. And I just was so cool. And so, yeah, when I was mixing it, I really tried to bring the low ends up. And because I just, that cello part is amazing anyway, but then specifically there was like just some super cool things happening with her instrument that I, I mean, I feel like this isn't always true, and certainly it's hard to capture in a recording, but instruments that are made of wood, I feel like sometimes you can hear the piece of wood, or I mean, obviously you're hearing the piece of wood, that's how it works, but like you actually can feel like you're getting to know the actual piece of wood. And with her cello, it was just like that I don't know, I can't explain it now. I wish I hadn't started talking about this because I have no idea how to explain.
No, I'm glad you did. I think there's a lot of people that understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's another member of the band, really. These instruments.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about especially instruments. I mean, any instrument really that's especially older and been passed around. I feel like it soaks up some of that, the mojo, the spirits, whatever it is. But I think especially, as you said, with wood, which is so pliable, by humidity and age and all those things.
It was born at a certain time.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, it lived at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that, and it continues to live in a different way when it turns into an instrument. So I completely agree. And I think what's cool about how you recorded this album is that because it wasn't like a crazy high fidelity situation, in a way you picked up some of those sounds that you might not have, or you might have been able to gloss over in a studio setting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, probably they purposefully would have tried to edit some of that out, Cause,
Well, it's a good thing they didn't. And I'm just curious, like, when you played live, like, did you bring these instruments with you, or did you primarily, play in a smaller configuration? I was just curious how this translated to a live performance.
Well, we did, sorry, I'm reading one of the comments here, but we did a CD release party at the Cedar Cultural Center. And so on that one, Aaliyah did play, and I think you can even find some video of it online. But I think she and I only probably played 1 or 2 shows together. So no, there were very few times that it ever sounded anything close to the recording, which is ironic because I personally love people that their recordings. I mean, like if I go see a live show and I buy the recording, I want it to sound the same way. I'm sort of like kind of curmudgeonly like that. And then here I make this album that literally is never recreated ever in real life.
Well, it's just temporal art.
Which is why people should, if they like it, they should buy it and
That's
stream
right.
it. It's on all the platforms and
platforms.
and all that jazz. And Eliza says that even though it might not be on her website, she will send you a copy.
Yeah,
so
if you want a
contact her
copy,
through the website. Yeah, or on Facebook.
Send me an email, and for real, I will mail you one because we were joking about that. Basically, I guess people don't listen to CDs that much anymore, but I still do, and I have some, so I will be very pleased to sell you one.
Yeah. And one of the things you get when you have the CD version is you get the cover art, and it's a beautiful package, this CD. And Connie actually was asking about the cover art for this album.
Well, so that photograph was taken by Tony Nelson, who's a great photographer. He does all kinds of, he does art photography, but also covers a lot of musicians in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And he, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It was like, we did this photo shoot knowing it was going to be for cover art. And he took a bunch of shots with his nice fancy camera. But then he took just a handful with this, I think it was like a Russian camera from like the 80s or something. It was just like this little junky plastic thing. He's like, well, this might be fun. And he even, I think, and now some of it is effects, like it's made to look like, an old fashioned photograph or whatever. But like it actually looked surprisingly like that. It isn't all just, like if you can kind of see the circle and the way it's tinted, I think that's more effects. And there's something on it it's supposed to look kind of drippy, like the chemicals didn't set well or something. But
looks like a painting.
Doesn't
beautiful.
it? But that like me, like he didn't do any Photoshop to me. That's how it came out of this, like plastic communist Russia camera. So, and then the rest of the all the layout and design was done by a good friend of mine named Anna. On the credits it says Anna Lawrence, but her name is now Anna Bierbauer. She was a Minneapolis girl, but now she lives in Denver, Colorado. So
wonderful.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a beautiful beautiful sort of package. So folks can check that out, order it directly from Eliza. And again, today we're on Back Catalog Listening Party. We're talking with Eliza Blue from South Dakota, and you. Your life in South Dakota is pretty different than what it was in the Twin Cities. You lived in Northeast Minneapolis, played a lot of bars, and had a very urban lifestyle. And now you live in rural South Dakota on a ranch with kids, and you're still making music and writing. But how'd
you end up there?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
I want to know. I want to know,
guys. I don't know. So weird. Yeah, it was, well, basically, so after this album came out, I toured a bunch with it, and, I was getting pretty good reviews or whatever, but it was just, I don't know. You guys know, it's hard. Being a musician is it's kind of a hard lifestyle, and staying up too late, and that was my main deal. Like, I didn't have a day job, so it was very stressful and sort of scary all the time, wondering, if you're going to be able to pay rent and all that sort of thing. So I was just pretty burnt out, and I felt I needed to change. So I came out here, and I taught English for a couple of years at a high school in the town by where I now reside. And our sort of claim to fame is for a while, they called us the McFarthest place, because we're the farthest place from a McDonald's of anywhere in the contiguous United States.
Seems like a badge of honor, maybe.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'm looking out my window. You guys can't see it, but if you could just look out for a long time before you see anything other than grass and, there's a gravel road. But we are far, 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 far away from everything. And so it's awesome. I mean, I love it. But it still is a kind of a surprise all the time that this is where I ended up after living exclusively in cities for basically my entire life. So.
Well, and again, you live on a ranch, and that's not just like a hobby farm. You guys, I mean, it's work.
Yeah, you were saying before the call that this is a really busy season for you.
Yeah, we were talking about doing live shows and or doing live streaming, and I was like, oh man, well, this is the time of year that just basically all the babies are born. So I raise sheep, mostly fiber sheep. So basically we're just about done with that. But when they're in the season that they're going to be having babies, you just kind of have to be watching them 24 hours a day, because usually it's fine, but every once in a while, just like kind of like a midwife, except for sheep. It sounds weird, but that's essentially your job. And then, we've got milk cows, and they have their babies. So then we are milking and all that kind of stuff. So
with no previous experience, did you just jump into this? Did you just buy some animals and how did this happen? How did this work?
No, people do that, and I don't know how, because basically I married it into it. So my husband is a fourth generation rancher, and he knows everything, and I am his like really inept sidekick. Who's like trying to help, and like half the time isn't, it's gotten better. I mean, I've been out here for, I guess it's been almost 10 years since, because it was right after I released the album. It was like the following year is when I came out here the first time. But we've been married for 6 years. So the first couple of years, I did actually have like my own little chicken coop and a couple of lambs or whatever. But
starter animals.
Exactly, pretty much.
Well, and that life keeps you busy, but I am impressed that you've continued to make music and with a couple kids and write. And actually, you just released a book about this whole experience, right? So that's so exciting.
See, if I was better at marketing, I would have said, if you want to know how I ended up here, you need to buy my book.
Well, I think you just did. So there you go.
That's what it's about. I can't explain it to you. It's too long, so you should just buy the book.
That's right. There it is. So exciting. That's so great.
So tell us about this book. That's a pretty amazing accomplishment.
Well, so it's a series of essays. I started. This is so fun. I'm reading the comments. Sorry, it's hard not to get distracted though.
Oh no, it's fine. That's part of the fun.
It really is.
So this book, I'd been teaching English. I stopped teaching English, and I was sort of going to try my hand at writing a lifestyle column for our small town paper. And up to that point, my writing had been exclusively songwriting or like writing in journals, basically. So I decided I was going to, kind of put myself out there a little bit. And so I started writing this little column, and it ended up being way more successful than I would ever have dreamed. And so now is carried by papers all over the state of South Dakota. And then at some point I just started kind of turning them into something book length. So it's basically a series of essays that cover the first 5 years that I lived on the ranch, and which you can see those two cute kids in that picture. Those are my kids. And so it's also, it's a lot about ranching and sort of me trying to figure out what the heck was going on, not just on the ranch, but in my life. And then, when my kids were born, sort of then navigating early motherhood, which Ellen, also you, as you know, there is quite a learning curve involved in that.
And Tony has 2 kids, but they're a little bit older, so he's the experienced one in this group, I will say.
Well, but I can't imagine going through all those changes at once. That's
it was a little crazy. Well, and so they're 3.5 and almost 5 now. So this picture is a little old, but yeah, the first couple years it was just madness. But I think that's early parenthood. It's just madness in a good way. But it's definitely like, what is even happening?
So Eliza Blue's new book out now. That's so exciting. I was so excited to see that you have compiled all that stuff, and that you've sort of continued to be creative in different ways in South Dakota. Actually, this is perfect, because the next song we're going to listen to is Mending Fences, although I'm guessing this is a metaphor, not a literal song.
Maybe a foreshadowing, perhaps.
Maybe it is a foreshadowing. That is so funny. I didn't even think about that. Well, because this song is based on the poem by Robert Frost. Which is, sort of like the whole concept of good fences make good neighbors. And it's funny because this song, basically, I don't think I've ever talked about what it's actually about. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to do that. Because it's basically, all right, the idea that good fences make good neighbors, as in it's good to keep a little distance between yourself and other people. And this song was a little bit, I guess it's kind of a meditation. I think with songs and poetry, it's never really straightforwardly like, it's just about this and that's what it's about. Or, well, maybe sometimes it is. But for this song, it's kind of a meditation on that concept, but also how, therefore, we can create distance between ourselves and other people. And there's a point at which, like, that really, as I'm saying this, I'm like thinking about sheltering in place in the pandemic, like, oh boy, it's taking on all kinds of new meanings now as I'm sitting here thinking about it. But just how we need, like, sometimes it's good to invade people's privacy, I guess, if you think somebody's in crisis, for example. And that sometimes good fences don't make good neighbors, which I think, Robert Frost he was being a little ironic too, I think, by saying that. And basically how, we can sort of give hints that we're having a problem, but we aren't always good at soliciting the help that we need, I guess, because of, I think it's a very sort of Western, and maybe even especially Midwestern way of being, to think that we need to, like, put on a brave stoic face and not ask for help when we need it, I guess. Or even maybe think that we are, maybe sending out signals that we need help and they're not as clear as we think. So that's some of what, I guess, went into the song. There's more to it than that, but that's the ideas I kind of came into it with.
Awesome. All right. This is Eliza Blue, Mending Fences, on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Like the wind that blows, this is how This is how the net is cast. It's woven well and built to last. Your ocean days are over now. It's back to the well. Just like the rain that falls, I'm hardly here at all. This is how the story ends, again and again. After all, who don't love a wall, mending time. And I get that it's true when I'm too heavy to get carried away day after day. And I'm too old to hope, and I'm too young to crawl. So I'm asking you, dear, will you get clear? I'm asking you, dear, will you get clear? The first blushes off the rose. This is how the garden grows. In summertime it's all aglow. Poor little rose. Don't ask if you don't want to know the secret places my mind can go, the secret games my mind can play, day after day. After all, who don't love a wall at mending time? And I get that it's true when I'm too heavy to get carried away day after day. And I'm too old to hope, and I'm too young to crawl. So I'm asking you, dear, will you get clear? I'm asking you, dear, will you get clear? Will you get clear? After all, who don't love a wall at mending time? And I get that it's true, and I'm too heavy to get carried away day after day. And I'm too old to hope, I'm too young to crawl. So I'm asking you, dear, will you get clear? I'm asking you, dear, will you get clear? I'm asking you, dear.
Oh, I love the arrangement on that song. You can hear that classical violin influence on
I
those
was going to say the
arrangements.
same
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, like a string quartet in there.
Yeah.
Did you arrange that stuff, Eliza?
Yeah.
That was your stuff.
Well, I mean, so that was that was me. And again, not only could it not be recreated because I never played it with a group of string players, I didn't write down the music. It was all improvised. So I just did it one layer at a time. And then
Oh, cool.
sort of similar to what I did with the women singers on the Reprise, I just went in and picked out parts that I liked and just kind of, built it that way. So for me to even try to recreate it would be very challenging.
Well, that's a fascinating tidbit. There's some people have to write things, and have it exactly as is, and other people just kind of hear it, and that's how it ends up. And I think that's really cool. It's nice to,
Yeah, and it's cool that will only be the ever. We were just talking about this before he came
yeah.
on today about how recordings will only ever be what you did on that day or days that you recorded, and the music kind of lives on or takes other meanings at other points. But I love that this album in particular really is like you're never going to recreate that because you don't even have the parts. So
because yeah, exactly. I don't even know how. Yeah, I wish I was better at reading and writing music. It's a sadness of mine, but either way, it would be.
Well, I did actually have a question about you have a really strong and confident voice, and I was curious if that was did you ever have voice training? Was that something that you did growing up? Where did that come from?
Where it came from is I was obsessed with Les Miserables when I was 13 years old.
Nice.
I'm not making this up. This
Nice.
is not a joke. I that was back when cassette tapes were what you listened to.
Oh yeah.
Way
I
before
have the
CDs.
Les Mis soundtrack on cassette, so I know what you're talking about.
So I wore it out. That's what I like. I would listen to it just all the time, and I would sing every part, and that's how I learned to sing for an entire year. I think I probably sang, I don't even know, like maybe once a day, sang through the whole recording.
That's so cool.
So on different days, were you different parts? You're like, today I'm going to be Valjean the whole day.
I was just everybody all the time.
Nice.
Javert, Jean Valjean. I was like talk to myself, and so, and I really, it's funny because I don't know. I feel like there's different sort of styles of vocalizing that become, sort of fashionable at different points. And my style of singing is definitely not in fashion and has not been for quite some time. But if you listen to what was popular on Broadway in the 80s, you will discover.
Well, that totally answers my question. I felt like there was something, there was an influence there. I think it's great. Yeah.
But it's funny you say that because now that you say that, it totally makes sense. Because you have a lot of vibrato in your voice, which is also something that you hear on Broadway. But there's also such a soulful quality, and Bruce had commented he loves powerful female vocals, and so often when we think of the word powerful when it comes to female singers, usually we think like a low end, right? Like a
Gritty.
hefty voice, like a Mavis Staples, right? Someone who has that heavy. But what's cool is that you have such power on your high end of your voice it's just really amazing. You have this quality that I think a lot of more soprano folk singers don't have, and anyway, it's palpable, and there's so much emotion in your singing that I think has always struck me. And I was really thinking that when I heard that track.
Yeah.
Well, for me, without like revealing too much, so Mending Fences, that particular song, I think that, the person that I am just in my regular life, the person that I present, and, I'm not like I'm being disingenuous, is very different than the person I am when I'm writing songs, I guess. And so for me, there was always a lot of catharsis in songwriting and in performing. And this actually relates to what Joel was saying. He was saying that, so Joel, when he was in the United States, we got to play together a lot. He's speaking of amazing violin / fiddle players, although he is a fiddler and he plays, he's great. So if you want to hear some great Swedish fiddle, look him up. But so we got to play a lot, but we played that song only very rarely, because I played that song only very rarely, because that song's just even a little bit too intense for me. Even now to hear it is sometimes like, whoa. So to play it was the same. It was just a pretty emotional song, but that's part of, I think, what drew me to performing is it gave me a place to maybe express something that was harder for me to express in regular life, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that makes a lot of sense. And it's funny that you say that it's doing that song was almost too emotional, because last week we had Dean McGraw on, and he was saying the same thing. He said there was one session he had to take a break because
I had to walk out of the studio
because it was like the music, like playing the music was too emotional experience, and he's like, I can't curtail it, So But anyway, so yeah, there's something that magical that happens, which is sometimes it's not always easy. It's sometimes harder
Yeah.
than people think. I think people have this image like, oh, if you're creating art, you're just releasing all this stuff, and it's like, no, sometimes that's painful.
Yeah, sometimes you're dredging up stuff. Actually, I'm like, oh.
Well, and, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I want to hear what you're just saying. Then I have something funny to tell you guys. But
Okay. Well, what I was going to say is,
stuff.
aside, kind of like a like a byproduct of doing the show, has been this kind of this process of going back and listening to these little temporal pieces, this thing that was recorded at a certain time, and I guess for the first time, I've really thought about these pieces of art in kind of the same way you might think of something at a museum. You wouldn't ask Picasso to paint that exact same painting again. You wouldn't go there, and you wouldn't ever expect a visual artist to do that. And I think for artists, like for musicians and people who are trying to express themselves in these ways, sometimes that's exactly what has to happen. It comes out, like on that one record at that one day, on that one time, and there it is. And this is a more the reason to capture it and to go back and listen again. So I love what you said about that, and I think that that rings true for many of us who perform.
For sure.
So the funny story I have to tell you guys. So the comment that's down here by Lucia Bonacci, that's my sister. She's 7 years younger than me. Now, I don't know. This is kind of won't be that funny if you aren't really familiar with the Les Mis soundtrack. But there's a song that the prostitutes sing. And they're like, called the Lovely Ladies, and that's the song. And so it's lovely ladies going for a song. What a lot of quarters, but they never last for long. Anyway, because my sister and I shared a room, and I literally listened to this every day. My little 5-year-old sister, my mom tells this story of her like out playing with her friends, like, running around the neighborhood, and you'd hear my little sister singing, "Lovely ladies."
Singing about prostitutes for all the neighbors.
So my mom was just like, "Oh gosh, I hope none of the neighbors know what that song is really about."
Oh wow, I love it, love it. Well, let's try and get one more song in before we have to go today. We have "Sword and Shield," which I'm so glad you picked because this is one of my favorite songs on the record, and it's one of those ones that I feel like every time I saw you live, kind of leading up to this release, and when you were still when this song was in rotation in Eliza Blue performances, every time I was like, I hope she plays Sword and Shield. I hope she plays Sword and Shield, because it was like one of my favorites. So I don't know if there's anything you want to say about it, or if you just want to jump in and talk about it after.
We can just jump in.
Okay.
All right.
I'm a soldier. shield, you are my wound.
Eliza Blue, Swords and Shields from her 2010 release, The Road Home. And I have to say, Tony and I both grooving. It's funny. It's like a banjo player's headbanger. We're like that claw hammer, where it's just like that and Mikkel Beckman's percussion. You just really that's a good groove going on in that.
Well, that was always my joke too, is that, oh no.
I think Tony's muted.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, I want to hear what you had to say. Go
I
ahead.
just heard some old modal mountain music right there.
Yeah.
Sure.
And well, this is, I started playing banjo with my joke always with that was that if you can't write happy songs, at least make them peppy.
It's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. And banjo, definitely, there's something about banjo. It just really does give you, and I don't know, it makes you want to kind of get up and get moving, which can be a good thing during a singer-songwriter set.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, and there's something about, in that song, Mikkel is doing percussion, but obviously banjo and in many periods, in many genres, has been the percussion instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes sense that it sort of has that movement to it. So when did you pick up playing banjo? And you pretty much play exclusively clawhammer, right?
Yeah, I do. I'm trying. Gosh, I don't even know. It was after I moved. Gosh, I don't even know. Maybe, well, probably in 2006 or 7. I'd only been playing for a few years when I recorded this album, as you can maybe tell. So I definitely can't quantify myself as an expert banjo player, but I just love it. I just love playing it, and I love the sound of it. So I basically did it because I love Gillian Welch, and I just want to be like her. So
You're not alone.
As happy as the banjo is, there's the old joke, you can't play a sad song on the banjo, but it's got to be one of the more melancholy, instruments out there. And there's something about even, I don't know, playing a peppy song like that where it can evoke kind of both of the emotions at one time.
I think it's a heavy spirit instrument, in my opinion. Like, I feel like you feel ghosts in that instrument. Oh, hi!
That's right. Yes. Do you want to? Oh, thank you. He brought me a flower.
Oh, that is adorable.
Oh. Oh, and here we have somebody else. I think
right.
You can tell we're getting to the end here. I think. Yeah. No.
They did really good, by the way.
Yeah.
They did excellent.
Okay.
Really good. Hi there. Hi.
Do you want to wave? You can say hi. No. No.
So, do they play music?
Well, this is Wesley, and he really likes playing drums. Actually, I think
Tony
that's
got to start playing drums.
I did.
Really?
I did.
Banjo. So
It's a great foundational instrument for every other instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So drums is his thing, but he also really loves trumpets, and I don't know how to play anything even remotely like that. So at some point, I think we're gonna have to see if we can find him a trumpet teacher. All right, and here comes, and then this is Rue, and she plays violin actually.
Oh,
She loves
Rue.
violin.
Wow. Nice.
Do you want to say hi? No.
All
Yeah,
right.
actually, someone just asked, "Where's Rue?"
Where's Rue?
Well, there
Thank
you go. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Eliza, for taking the time away from your family and the sheep having babies and all of that to talk with us today.
This has been just a wonderful hour.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I hope you guys keep doing this because this is just a great idea, and I think it's fun for musicians, but for also music lovers. This is just a really neat opportunity.
Yeah, we've really, it's definitely what's kept me and Tony kind of sane during this whole thing. But I think what we were saying that we missed about live shows wasn't just playing music with like our bandmates, but it was the connection you have with your audience and talking with people about music and hanging out with people who like music. And so we're trying to have that online. Not that it's the same thing, but it's a different way to connect with people and from greater distances. So
Yeah,
it's nice to
and
have so many people joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here. There were so many people that
Yeah.
are lending their voice and saying hello, and we really, really appreciate you coming each week and spending this time with us. It means a lot to us.
For sure. And if you like what you hear, you can share this. It will be up on the Back Catalog Listening Party Facebook page. You can share it with your friends. And next week, actually, we'll have Ben Cookfeltz, who I might know pretty well. He might be downstairs with a certain baby, but he'll be talking about his song. So there might be another baby appearance next week, but we'll see how that shakes out.
Nice, nice. I think that could be a thing. I'm cool with it. I mean, that's the fun
Yeah.
thing about these quarantine streams. Like you get to see
The insider
the-
perspective.
Yeah,
see how we really live.
exactly.
I don't know if anyone really wants to see it, but Anyway, thank you all for joining us. If you like Eliza Blue's music as much as we do, then you should go to her website, elizablue.net. You can get her book, you can get music, and of course, it's also available on all the digital streaming places as well. And Eliza, you were saying that you might, hopefully, at some point, you might be having some book events online or later in person.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I have a Eliza Blue page that you can follow too, that I try to keep updated as to, again, at this point, online things, but maybe someday real life things too.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Happy Friday, everybody. This has been great.
Bye.
Yeah, right. See you next week.